Thank you very much, friends. Greetings. I appreciate so much the opportunity. I want to appreciate the European Union Parliament for the resolution on Uganda and for keeping an eye on Uganda. We don't take it for granted. Every time we see development partners keeping an eye on what is happening here in Uganda. We also recognize that the EU is an important partner to Uganda, and we intend to maintain and also improve this partnership and this cooperation. We would also love to see this relationship happening between the people of Uganda and the European Union, not just General Museveni's illegitimate military regime. I'm still on the run. I'm still in hiding because of the continuing threats on my life since what happened on the 16th of January when my house was, my compound was raided and I fled my house. And also the following raid that happened on the 23rd of January, where my wife was assaulted and my family members were assaulted, and the military took over my home, which the military still occupies to the present day. My home is surrounded and the military is in charge of it now. What happened on the 15th of January and the preceding days was not an election. It was a military operation, and I'm very glad that it was clearly stated during the debate in the European Union Parliament. This violence started much earlier. It started on nomination day, and it went through the campaign trail. And I'm glad that the resolution mentions in specifics victims like Mesa Chokero, who was shot and killed, and also General Muhoozi Kainerugaba, who is the military chief and the son of General Museveni, came out on Twitter and, mentioned how he killed 22 of our people, and hoping that I would be the 23rd. I must mention, though, that the numbers that he put are much less. Maybe he mentioned or he meant those that he killed personally. Otherwise, the numbers that we have of the victims, of the people that have been killed, are much more than 22. Many civil society organizations were closed down, especially those that are in the area of governance. It was mentioned, and I want to reiterate it again, that the internet was shut down 3 days before the election. Media houses were ordered not to relay the results that were happening and all that was going on ground on the polling stations, to ensure that there's a clear disconnect between what was happening in the polling stations and what was being relayed by the Electoral Commission. I'm very glad that Dr. Sarah Birete is with us today. In this meeting, she was arrested, detained, because she was taking an effort to speak out and educate people, the citizens of Uganda, about their rights and on democracy. I mentioned it that 2 of my deputy presidents were abducted on the eve of the election, and they remained missing for 3 weeks. We later learned that they were being detained in a military barracks, in a special forces military barracks, which is run by General Museveni's son, Muhoozi Kainerugaba. Most of our coordinators were arrested, were picked and detained. Some are still in detention, while some were dropped off. These also included officials from our election management committee. So what Mr. Byabakama, the chairperson of the Electoral Commission, relayed was actually completely different from what happened on the grounds. The law requires that there must be coordination in the tallying of the results. That did not happen. The candidates were not given copies of declaration of result forms, and the Electoral Commission simply declared numbers that it did not justify where they were coming from. As we speak, we are still demanding that the Electoral Commission uploads the declaration forms so that the nation can be able to follow in transparency, so we can be able to compare the evidence that we have, the declaration of result forms that we have, to what was paraded by the Electoral Commission. But up to now, they have not uploaded the results on the internet like it's supposed to be. Somebody may ask, why then didn't we go to court? But we've mentioned it again that institutions in Uganda have all been destroyed, and including the judiciary. The manner of appointment of the Chief Justice recently is evidence to that. The Chief Justice was sworn in General Museveni's farm. So that and many other reasons cause us not to have, trust in the judiciary in Uganda. And many, many times the regime, General Museveni or his son, have actually been guiding publicly and sometimes privately, determining how the judiciary does its work. So we found no redress whatsoever in the Ugandan judiciary, and that's why we did not go to court. We have presented some asks, which I want to reiterate here. We've asked for targeted sanctions that target particular individuals and regime officials that have, excelled in gross human rights violations. We believe that will curb their appetite in abusing, human rights, in undermining democracy, and to ensure that there's accountability for their crimes against humanity. Because I know we have other speakers on the platform, I want to appreciate you for the opportunity and to further call for more interest and for more attention to the people of Uganda. We really, really appreciate the attention, but we still request the international community to keep an eye on Uganda, to keep an eye on what is going on here in our country. I thank you for God and my country.
Thank you very much. I can promise we will do that. I make sure as a chair of the delegation EU Africa that we will keep an eye on Uganda and we will follow up the situation very closely.
Uganda is can be at the same time this country that is brings stability to the region by engaging with neighbors and by hosting refugees from neighbors. And at the same time being horrible to its own opposition, to people that engage in civil society. In a way, this country has kind of a split personality, being good on the one hand and mean to the inside. And that this state is a state as a booty for the Museveni family and the regime. Can be seen today. Today there was planned to be held a Catholic Mass in the Lubaga Cathedral for political prisoner Dr. Kisa Pasigye and other political prisoners that has been cancelled on the last minute by the Archbishop, probably because he got a call that it would be wise not to do this. For me, this shows that this is not a free country. I can only say that for me, there's no transparency in those elections, and already acknowledging the results of such a fraudulent election is taking part in supporting a regime that is, from my point of view, not duly elected. So I think that we are already too positive on that note as a European Union. So. It's said several times that the Ugandan constitution is very clear on the provisions, but apparently nobody cares, at least from those who are in the regime. So my question to our friends in Uganda is, what can we do further to support democracy and rule of law and human rights in Uganda, apart of doing what we do today, which is putting light to this situation. You request for targeted sanctions. My question to BAS is what is hindering us if we know clearly that there are some people personally involved in abducting people, killing people, to put in place targeted sanction. These are my two questions to our esteemed guests. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there other colleagues who want to take the floor or not? Otherwise, I would like to give the floor back to Uganda, to Mr. Kuyang Kuyangulani, Mr. Bobi Wine. Sorry for your family name is a little bit difficult for me to pronounce.
Yeah.
If you can give the floor first to you and then to Mrs. Birete. Yes.
Sure. May I request that you repeat the question again, please?
So, Robert, first I said all the best for you personally and for your family, but I wanted to know a part of putting light on the situation and organizing meetings like this and calling for targeted sanctions. What else can we do in order to support you on the ground that are working for democracy in your country?
Thank you very much. I'll talk about what you can do from your end and what you can do from our end here in Uganda. From your end, of course, you can apply targeted sanctions. And I hear very many times regime apologists claiming that when you put targeted sanctions on individuals, it affects the nation. No, it does not. It saves the nation. You can slap targeted sanctions, travel sanctions, economic and legal, to the individuals, which individuals we have presented internationally, and others have actually come out themselves, like General Muhoozi, Museveni's son. You have laws like the Global Magnitsky, which has been applied to many human rights violators. We request that the same be applied to the regime back in Uganda, but also association. I mean, it slaps those who believes in democracy and human rights in the face when they see ambassadors or diplomats from the world-known democracies standing shoulder to shoulder with gross human rights violations. For example, imagine just a day or hours after General Muhoozi tweets taking pride in murdering people, in attacking people's families and undressing people and tweeting it, taking pride in killing. And then the next minute, you're going to see an official picture of an ambassador from a renowned democracy standing shoulder to shoulder. That is embracing, that is legitimizing impunity. And we call for distancing on that. I mean, I've not seen an ambassador or an government official from a democracy standing shoulder to shoulder with Lukashenko or these other, renowned dictators. Also, we have requested that for all the aid that is extended to Uganda, let it be conditional. Let it be conditioned to respect to democracy, human rights, and the rule of law. That would be very helpful. If it is not possible to cut out any cooperation, of course, the best thing would be for a democracy to disassociate from anything that contradicts the same. However, if it is not achievable to completely disassociate, then at least let there be a minimum of demanded, reforms that can lead Uganda to a line of democracy.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bobi Wine. And now I would like to give...
Met me a few hours on 1st of January, a few hours to interrogation. During interrogation, I had 4 lawyers present at the police station. I was denied legal representation. I was alone. And one lawyer was told to sit outside and you will be invited by the police if needed. Yet Article 23 of the Constitution provides that any person suspected of having committed a crime is entitled to legal representation, access to family lawyers and doctors. I was denied. All my visitors were chased away. I was held 2 days without knowing the offense I had committed. And when it clocked 44 hours in detention, that's when an officer came to interrogate me. And I was asked questions regarding the president and his son and the media interviews I do as part of my work in advocacy. During arrest, all the phones that were in my home, including those of my children, were wrongly confiscated by the police in a scuffle that led to assault of my children, and the phones of my children were held for more than 1 month and they were left at home with no means of communication. My phone is still in police custody, and I have started experiencing digital impersonation. My handle on TikTok, my personal handle, has been brought down by hackers, yet it's registered in the phone that is with the police. 3 different accounts have been opened in my names using my biodata and my place of work, and they post offensive communication using deep fakes. The communication is related to what I was interrogated about. 2 of these accounts were opened when I was in detention in prison. And with my phone in the hands of police and with digital impersonation, I don't know what else they are doing regarding my personal data and communication. Towards elections, I was profiled as a highly dangerous person because of the work that I do as a chairperson of the GENDEM, chairperson of the Eastern Horn of Africa Election Observers Network, vice chairperson of the Africa Elections Observer Network, and president of the East Africa Civil Society Forum. The security thinks that this work that I do in the region, on the continent, and at the global level is dangerous, and it warrants me being treated as a terrorist because of promoting democracy and human rights. This profiling is what led to my detention and the charges that are related to a voter register, which I have never seen, that are related to sharing of data on a voter register, which is a public document, and these are the charges that I am battling in court. When you look at the work, the characterization of my work, during travels at the airport, some random security officers would ask me what I do and why I travel so much. And the work was characterized as recruiting for opposition, as fundraising for opposition in security files. This is how I became a target of regime harassment. The unwritten offenses by the military and the security agencies in Uganda is that if you are a promoter of democracy and human rights, then you are a dangerous person to the government of Uganda. Our constitutional watchdog, the organization that I head locally, capitalizes on demanding for accountable leadership in line with the constitution of Uganda. But calling out to the regime to account on human rights violations on several media platforms is what rendered me to be branded as a criminal in Uganda. The siege under my home, which lasted for more than 2 hours, surrounding the whole neighborhood, took away, violated our privacy, led to assault of my children, led to the detention of their phones, and depriving them of a right to communicate or study, including those that were engaged in online studies. I will now embark on the plight of civil society organizations in Uganda. The suspension of work permits for organizations that work on governance, human rights, and elections violates the NGO Act of Uganda, violates the NGO Amendment Act of 2024, because the definition of the NGO Bureau in Section 16 means the board members of the Bureau. These board members do not exist after rationalization. The secretary who signed forms purporting to be holding out as the Bureau is impersonating the Bureau and has no such mandate. And the suspended NGOs were not given a right to be heard, which is a right provided for in the NGO Act. And the indefinite suspension of permits is in effect closure of NGOs without due process. The NGOs have been intimidated into silence because of a mention of activities prejudicial to national security. And most of them are hopeless and they cannot fight back. My third issue is on general human rights violations in Uganda. The militarization of the accreditation process for voter education and election observation leading to elections, which we refused, saying that voter education cannot be the business of the military. And because we were pushing back protecting the laws of Uganda, we were then marked as dangerous. In this election, there was no credit for voter education, high militarization of elections, and disruption of opposition campaigns, especially those of the National Unity Platform, disrupted by the military and police, including roadblocks, the issues that we were talking about that led to the arrest.
Ms. Birete, I'm sorry. Our chair, Hilde Woutmans, had to leave, so I'm stepping in for her. My name is Ingeborg Telek, and I'm the vice chair of this committee. Can I ask you, please, to come to your conclusions, because I assume this was your third and last item you wanted to address, or not?
Yes, please. I will mention the state of judicial and rule of law as I go towards the conclusion.
Thank you.
We have the weak judicial in place with questionable legitimacy, because the Bar Association of Uganda has been locked out of the Judicial Service Commission, and the ongoing appointments, including that of the Chief Justice and Principal Judge, have questionable legitimacy because of lack of quorum at the Judicial Service Commission. There is also abuse of the presumption of innocence by the courts of Uganda, and anybody suspected of committing a crime is treated as if they have already been convicted, and this is a violation of Article 28 of the Constitution. As I conclude, I want to re-echo the diplomatic relations between the EU member states and citizens of Uganda. There is remarkable silence from your representatives in Uganda, and we understand the diplomatic relations to be relations between member states while promoting the pride and welfare of citizens. There is silence on violation of human rights in Uganda. There is silence on the re-echoing of EU values that are enshrined under Article 2 of the treaty. And through you, I want to request that the people of Uganda should not be pushed to lose confidence in your representatives in our capitals by neglecting the rule of law and rights of the people. I thank you so much.
Asante sana, Mrs. Birete, and your message is very well heard on this side. It's very well heard by the Parliament, and thank you so much for your intervention. And I think you really paved the way for our next speaker to also say something about the diplomatic relationships we.
Mukulike yerubaga nebyerubaga mu bitegedde. Tubadde tugenza okusabira abasibe baffe nga bakulembeddwa mu famire ya Dr. Kizza Besigye ne bakatutema tutuuse mu kereziya nga tewali kitambula, oluvannyuma ne bakatutema. Mukyala we Byanyima, mukyala wa Dr. Besigye, navaayo n'ategeeza ekibiina ababadde bazze okusaba, kibiina ky'abantu kye ŋŋamba nti yafunye essimu okuva ewa Ssaabasumba akulira essaza ekkulu ery'e Kampala. Oyo nno yakulira abakatuliki bonna mu ggwanga Uganda, si mu nsi yonna wabula mu ggwanga Uganda, ye Ssaabasumba Ssemwogerere. Essaza ekkulu ery'e Kampala lye litwala amasaza gonna ag'abakatuliki mu Uganda. Era oyo yakuŋŋaanya ebyababishopu bonna okuva mu bigundi byonna ne bajjawa, ye n'abitwala ewa Paapa. Bamukubidde mukyala we Byanyima, mukyala wa omusibe Dr. Kizza Besigye atutegeezezza nti yafunye essimu okuva ekiro ne bamutegeeza nti General Yoweri Museveni yakubidde bishop oyo archbishop namutegeeza nti bayimirize okusaba okwo kuleme kubaawo bamale okwetegereza oba tekuube political. Nze nno mbadde mmanyi ebintu bwe bituukamu okusaba biba bivudde mugenda ne musaba ne muvaayo tewali political, mugenda kuba lukuŋŋaana mu kereziya katulika ey'abakatuliki. So tujja kiwulira oba oli mukatuliki, tujja kiwulira. Nze ndi mukatuliki, bulidde okuswala mu kereziya yange Ntwala eyo Eklezia nentwala nze omukatoliki ndoza nawe omukatoliki wekutwala ebitongole ebisinga bigenda bisalwako bwe bityo gwe nabadde akyabita ebyokuzanya kati obukatoliki bwe baganye obusiraamu ojja buwulira simanya mwajjamu nti ate ono w'ekibuli ate bino be Kampala odi Kampala mugenda biwulira bingi kusabira tubadde tusabira abaganda baffe abasibe just kubasabira kuzamu bantu maanyi ekyo nakyo bakiganye kati n'okusabira omuntu n'okusaba Eklezia bifuuse nga pulezidenti yalina okulagira awo nno wetutuuse eggwanga Uganda olunaku lw'eggulo nabadde nina ebintu bye mbannyonnyola abamu mwabitegedde bulungi abamu temwabitegedde nabadde njogera ku tteeka General Museveni lye yasayininze erikwatagana n'ebizimbe okuzimba ebizimbe okuzimba ennyumba sina bizimbe kale ebizimbe nga mwe muli n'ennyumba yo akayumbako n'oguyumbago n'ekiyumba kyo abamu temwakitegedde abamu mwagambye olw'okuba nabadde n'embwa naye nayagadde mufuna attention gye muli abamu mwagifuddeko nnyo kubanga mwabadde nina ekintu ekibatwaliriza kati kanziriremu abo abagambye nti nina kwambala masuuti okubibaddiramu njagala okwongera okutegeeza mulimu mu comments ennasomye abamu ne bagamba mu developed countries ebyo bikola yes mu developed countries bikola mu Uganda bikola mu Uganda developed is it one of the developed country dala Uganda eri developed kati kankuddiremu bw'ogenda n'ofuna olukusa naluli obadde osaba olukusa obadde nno tosaba na lukusa naye kale tukitwala nti obadde osaba olukusa obadde ogenda n'okubisa pulaani yo n'ogitwala ne bajja approvinga bamala ojja approvinga n'ogenda mu kitundu kyo oba ku district oba mu town council n'otwalayo ne bakukkiriza okuzimba bibaddewo era bw'oba obadde bokola bwoti n'ozimba nga tebategedde tosasuddeyo tolina approval bajja ne bakwata gundizo bajja ne bakwata wheelbarrow zo n'ogenda n'ozijjayo ng'ebimu bigendako ne mu kkooti bwe babigize kati essaawa zino gwe muganda wange kye naggambye ky'otaategedde ebyo byonna bibaddewo nakati era bikyaliwo neteeka ne bwe litaali baddewo ennyumba eteekwa okuba ne pulaani nyumba eteekwa okuzimbibwa obulungi okitegedde ebyo si byempakanya nyumba oteekwa okugizimba ne ratio owa simiti omulungi ffe ng'abazimbi nti oba 1 to 2 oba 1 to 3 oba 1 to 4 ratio nga nnungi eya simiti naye ekintu kye njagala okukugamba gwe ky'otaategedde bamu mwangu okukomentinga bino ebintu mu bitwale nti biri serious ekisookera ddala ogenda kusaba olukusa lwa myezi 6 bakuwa olukusa lwa myezi 6 bakuwa olukusa lwa myezi 6 ozimbiremu ennyumba eyo ye permit bw'oba tomaliriza nnyumba mu myezi 6 oddayo n'osaba olukusa olulala olukusa olwo tebalusaba busabi era wabaawo kaffi wadde wano sikalinaawo ketugenda okusasula oba konogenda okusasula bw'oba omaliriza ennyumba yo nga obadde ozimba ennyumba yo neekulemerera nga bwe tumanyi bwe tusonda bubulooka n'okubisa bubulooka n'okola byoti n'osiiwa obusenyu n'ozimba mpaka lw'omaliriza senga ogizimba mu myezi 6 n'etaggwa naye ekisenge ekimu n'okimala oba 2 n'oyagala oyingire era toyingira tebakukkiriza bakugamba naye osaba olukusa osobole okusula mu nnyumba eyo etannaggwa ate olukusa era tukuwa lwa myezi 6 bwe tukuwa olw'emyezi 6 ogyebakemu emyezi 6 bwe giggwako gifulume then omalirize ennyumba kakati bwe tuba tugenze ku mitendera egyo gyonna gyonna ng'ogimaze mu myezi 6 n'ozimba ennyumba yo n'ogimala ekyewuunyisa gavumenti ezimbye lubowa ng'erinamu ssente zaayo lubowa nakati tennaggwa gavumenti ekoze ebintu bingi nnyo byezimbye ebimu nebikonkomala ne paalamenti mugiraba kuva lwe baagigazira nayo tennaggwa naye nga paalamenti eyo yennyini eyayisiza ebyo ebiteeka yo yennyini yeyeebegera ne ku ssente zeemanya nti ejja kuzimba wali ne paalamenti tennaggwa oba eri mu myaka emeka so bwe bakugamba gizimbe ogimalirize mu bwangu bw'oba togimaliriza okola ebyo byenkugambye then kati bw'oba ogizimbye n'ogimaliriza oteeka okugizimba n'ogimaliriza okumaliriza ennyumba kwe kujja n'ozimba ennyumba bw'oba ogitaddemu tayiro n'ogiteekamu bw'oba togiteddemu tayiro n'ogiteekamu seminti owa niiru n'omaliriza n'olukola buli kintu kyonna kyonna n'okimaliriza toyi n'ozimala ebinnya n'obimala buli kimu kyonna kyonna buli kimu ng'ekyennyumba bwe kirina okubeera langi n'ogimala n'oddayo n'ofuna pamiti ekukkiriza okuyingira ennyumba tebiriiwo nti kakati mmaliriza okuzimba ennyumba ngenda kuyingira ennyumba yange omala kufuna lukusa baddembe okujja ne bakebera ennyumba ne bagisanga nga teri ku mutindo ennyumba eyo ne bagimenya bawadde obukiiko obwa district obukiiko obwa town council obukiiko obwa division obwo bwe butyo obwa municipality okubeera nga tebakyagenda na mu kooti bwe batuuka ku nnyumba ngeyo tebeza wagizimbye n'ogimaliriza wabula bwe bazze boto basanyusiza oyinza okuba nga wagimaliriza nga bwogenda ku kkubo nga tosobola kuwoza na musirikale wa ku kkubo bw'aba akuyimiriza bw'oba oli wakufukamira omwetondere oba weetonde bw'oweppanka ajja kutukuba ekipapula oba okuteeka mu kooti kale na bino bwe biri ojja kujja omusajja nga yazze anyiiza oba omukazi bamunyiizizza ekikulu ekisookera ddala ajja kugamba ennyumba eyo wagizimba bubi bajja kwata ne ku seminti bagambe kati ono seminti wateekamu mutono mu nsawo bwe ziti wateekamu bwe ziti kino wakola bwe kiti ne bwe kiti so baddire bagambe kino ekitundu bwe kiti bakimenye ogambe waawo weewe nyamba biki olaba ennyumba ogitaddemu obukaddaana nga bagamba leetayo $5,000,000 oba kitegedde oba onofuna kati bw'oba tozirina ennyumba ng'egwa ennyumba ekirala kye bagambye bw'oba ozimba ennyumba n'olagajjala bakisoba kulagajjala ne wabaawo akoseddwa ku nnyumba okwo bw'okosebwa ku nnyumba bwe wabaawo akoseddwa ku nnyumba oyo oba afiiriddeko osasula $1,000,000 oba okusibwa emyaka 12 oba okukola byombi bino ebintu tubijja mu biri bye mugamba nti developed countries zigenda okuzimba ziba zakozedde ekkubo lyazo nga ggazi bulungi nnyo wagenda okuyita amazzi bagayisizaamu dda simu we ziyita baziyisizaamu dda amagundi we gagenda okuyita amasannyalaze bagataddeyo dda buli kimu kyonna ne bakikuteera ku sayiti wekigenda okubeera ffe wano tuzimba ennyumba n'omaliza ne bajja ne bagiryebulako olugundi kubanga ozimba ennyumba nga tebannakuba na pulaani ya luguudo ogenda okumaliriza nga bazze balyebuddeko paati bamala okulyebula paati ku lujja ate nga bagamba meters 100 okuva ku luguudo so bino ebintu byendi mu bagamba agoyinza okugamba nti bituyamba yes bituyamba nalabyewo n'abantu abeefuula nti bagezi kubanga ayagala commentinga nye bino tebiriiko waliwo ambuuza bikola Kampala oba mu kyalo nkugambye Uganda yonna kati kyesimanyi oba abazimba obusisira bagenda bukolera batya pulaani kubanga tokkirizibwa kuwazimba nakayingira kati simanyi oba n'oba obusisira bubakwatako naye mukugamba naali mu kyalo eri akayumba konna k'obadde ozimba ogenda kusaba lukusa bonefuula nampulira zibi nga bikutuuseeko bagenda kukwata bakusibe bwe bakusiba oba ogundi fayini oba kitegeera so biri byonna bibaddewo ng'ogenda n'osaba olukusa ng'olina ne pulaani yes bibaddewo era n'ozimba ne bikola bwe bityo era bibaddewo era tukyabyagala era bibeerewo tebirina buzibu wabula nkugambye ebyo byenkugambye ebimu nti bagenda kukusiba bagenda kukwata ennyumba bagenda kugimenya bagenda kukola buli kintu kyonna lesho bw'oba seminti luli obadde ozimba n'osula mu kayumbako ekyuyi kimu ng'ekyuyi ekirala kyagaanadde okumala emyaka 3 kati ogenda kusobola kukisulamu gwe essaawa zino weppanka olw'okuba olinawo ssente ezimaliriza ennyumba naye tomanyi byanca enkya ziyinza okuggwako tomanyi bya muganda wenkya bisobola okukola ne bamusiba emyaka 12 tomanyi kigenda kutuukawo kubanga gwe essaawa zino olina ssente okukulaakulanya eggwanga tukyagala nnyo nze nkyagala naawe okyagala n'ekikulaakulanya kitya bwe mba nzimbyewo obuzigo bwange ennyumba ya bisenge 4 n'ensoose okumalirizaako 2 oba kimu kanjire nga nebaka nga nawali bwe maliriza kubanga yenfuna gavumenti tetekedde bannayuganda bwe bajja ssente amawanga geeri gasobola okutuuka waliwo minimum wage n'omanya nti omukozi agenda kufunanga ssente bwe ziti gavumenti emusasula ate nemuwola n'azimba oyo bwe bibanga bibadde bwe bityo zimba bwoti ne bwoti ekyo kyekiri ne wano omuntu bwafunayo 10 bwafunayo 10 bwafunayo bwati bwagulayo buloka 3 bwateekako bwati seminti bwazimba enzimba gye mumanyi gye tubadde tuzimbamu naye obeereko naawo bayingiddewo bulonadde nkyayogera ku bya nnyumba leero tugenze mu kereziya enkyogamba tudda ku ki waliwo abagenda okomentinga era nga bakomentinga ngaera babiwagira babiwagire naye olwaleero olinawo ku ssente owulire oyogere olinawo ku ssente linda bona ogenda ku akawunti zeweewaganizazo okutuukayo nga akawunti ye eriko 0 gye waleeseko $1,010,000 ng'owulire ozaagala nga bakugamba wakoze transaction otandika okwewuba ogende mu kkooti bikoyo